I'm finally back, guys. What's up, guys? The Keyblade Soulord here, and after a crap ton of delays, I have returned. Now that I'm back, I'm here with a countdown dedicated to the attorneys who appear in court in Ace Attorney. Whether it's a lawyer or a prosecutor, these attorneys are always there to determine the fate of the defendants in court, pointing out facts, bluffing, theorizing, and showing evidence until they reach the final verdict. So for this list, I'm counting down my top 14 Ace Attorneys. Same rules as my last list. No investigations, no Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright, just the main games. So, without further ado, the court is now in session. Since there are only 14 known Ace Attorneys in the series, well, except a few more in the investigation games, it's pretty clear that I have to start with the worst of them all. Case in point, Gaspin Payne. I don't have a lot of good things to say about him. Gaspin Payne is the younger brother of Winston Payne, in which we'll get to him later, and is known as the Defendant Humiliator. Unlike his older brother, Gaspin Payne is much more arrogant and smug, who has no regrets in badgering the witnesses and the defendant, even if they are younger women. In Dual Destinies, Gaspin almost managed to win the trial against Athena, who's defending her best friend Juniper Woods, but Phoenix arrived in time and proved Juniper innocent and Ted Tenate to be the culprit. Humiliated and scared after what happened in court and of what Edgeworth would do to him after finding out that he falsified evidence, Gaspin bolted out of his office and ended up in Khura'in. Oh, but that's not the worst part. Finding out that there was no defense attorneys in the kingdom due to the Defense Culpability Act, Gaspin saw this as a chance to get back on top and became chief prosecutor of the kingdom. Then when Phoenix got involved in Albie's case, he had convinced the judge to let Phoenix defend him and tells them that if he continues and loses, he'll suffer the same fate as the defendant, which means death. Unfortunately for him, Phoenix turned the case around and won the trial fair and square, humiliating Gaspin once again. Serves you right, Baldy. Winston Payne gets higher than his little brother for several more reasons. First off, Winston Payne is the very first prosecutor you ever faced in almost every Ace Attorney game until his last appearance in Apollo Justice. He's known as the Rookie Killer, who has managed to win his cases against novice defense attorneys. While he didn't show much character in the first game, his personality is more fleshed out in the following games, especially Trials and Tribulations. He's smug, overconfident, and even arrogant when he's up against rookies, but he's also easy to rattle and easy to give him trouble in articulating his arguments. If there's one thing that makes him so different than his own brother, is the fact that he would never resort to dirty tactics. He actually treats his witnesses with care and even defends them from being badgered. Probably my favorite moment was when he lost against Mia Fey. He literally loses his bravado along with his hair after being challenged to take the poison cold medicine. Though I'm still surprised about how he grew his hair in Apollo Justice. I already talked about Garen Sigatar Khura'in before, so for those who don't know and want to check more info on her, go back to my previous Ace Attorney villains list. So to save time, let's just talk about how she is as a prosecutor. She is indeed a good prosecutor, pointing out countless flaws in the defense's claims, as well as a good selection of evidence to counter our heroes. But the reason why she's so low here on the list is, like I said, that she cheats. As the queen, she has the will to change the law to her favor, to the point of treating any challenge to her authority as treason and immediate execution. She's this game's Queen of Hearts. If it wasn't for Apollo's quick thinking, he, Phoenix, and Ayuda would have gotten their heads chopped off. Manfred von Karma is another prosecutor that I have talked about in my last countdown, so yeah, like I said before, go back to my previous Ace Attorney villains list. Now that we got that out of the way, how is he as a prosecutor? Well, for starters, the fact that he never lost a case in 40 years is pretty impressive. That is, if he wasn't a manipulator behind the scenes. While he isn't much of a person who uses falsified evidence, the fact that he hides it and threatens his witnesses in court is downright despicable. Though he still is a keen prosecutor, and he has taught Edgeworth everything he knows. Though unlike him, Edgeworth has become a better person, while he bangs his head in shame after losing the Phoenix Wright. Overall, while Manfred von Karma is a smart prosecutor, he definitely is a manipulative bastard. Okay, now I know this next character isn't mostly loved by many Ace Attorney fans, but I'm sorry, but I think Nayuda doesn't deserve all the hate that he's gotten. Okay, before we get to the root of the problem, let's start by explaining who Nayuda is. Nayuda Sudmandi is a prosecutor from Khura'in, who's also a respected monk in his country, and happens to be Apollo's stepbrother. How he is as a prosecutor though, it's something that many people have considered harsh. Despite having a soft demeanor, Nayuda has a sharp tongue, invoking insulting metaphors and sometimes Khura'ini sayings to the defense for any flaw that he points out. He even uses his beats to any defense attorney he faces and chants in Khura'inese to constrict with them after he gets irritated. Even his politeness and graciousness isn't enough to calm down the hate. Now here's something that some people who hate him doesn't realize. Nayuda was forced to becoming a prosecutor by Queen Garan, his aunt, because she blackmailed him, threatening him for the exposure of Raitha as his sister rather than his cousin. If that were to be exposed, it would result in the prejudice towards the children of criminals, who so happens that Dirk, his father, is considered one. He didn't want his sister to be exposed as a criminal, realizing he had no choice but to become a prosecutor. Now I know that he hardly gets any character development until the end of the game, but that happened the same way to other prosecutors in the past, now didn't it? So before anybody can throw their hate on him, at least finish the game before doing so, because otherwise you would never understand how Nayuda feels, even after facing Apollo in court. Nayuda is a complex character, yes, but does he deserve all the hate? In my case, I think he doesn't. When it comes to facing a prosecutor, you'll probably expect them to point out flaws in your arguments, showing how foolish you can be while doing so, or probably expecting them to show evidence that could leave you speechless. This next one, however, uses a freaking whip! This is Franziska von Karma, daughter of Manfred von Karma and Edgeworth's stepsister. As the living progeny of her father, Franziska isn't an easy prosecutor to beat. She actually became a prosecutor at the age of 13, and since then she became one of the best international prosecutors. She also has a huge grudge on Phoenix Wright for what he did to both her father and Edgeworth in the first game, and because she's so determined to win against him in court. At first, she was very competitive and unrelenting in court, using the ways of prosecution like her father did before her. She even has a habit to use her whip on those she thinks they're out of line, especially on poor Phoenix. Not to mention that she was also very arrogant and headstrong, having a huge habit to use the words fool and foolish. Kind of a sore loser if you ask me. But after her losses against Phoenix and her conversation with Edgeworth about the means of being a prosecutor, she has become a little friendlier to those she faced before. In fact, she became friends with Adrian Andrews, one of her witnesses in her previous case, and taught her how to use a whip to defend herself. While now losing her determination of beating Phoenix in court, she vows to become a better prosecutor and not being in the shadow of her own father. While not many people like her, I do admire the character development that she has gone through, and I like her for that. Just don't make her call you a foolish fool who foolishly dreams of foolish dreams. For this next entrant, I think I'll let him introduce himself with a solo. Hit it, Clavier! Yep, Clavier's in the house, baby. Clavier Gavin is a veteran prosecutor and Apollo's rival. While he's a prosecutor, he's also a former lead vocalist and guitarist of the Gavineers, his own rock band. He's also the younger brother of Christoph Gavin, who you all know I hate, that effing manipulative bastard. But unlike his older brother, Clavier is the complete opposite. Unlike most of the other prosecutors, Clavier is honest and friendly, and while he has rockstar mannerisms in court and avoids the investigative work, he takes both his jobs very seriously. He's also cool and confident and likes to taunt and tease Apollo when he makes a mistake. But outside of court, he's really friendly towards Apollo and Trucy, and even openly talks to them about the cases in which they're working on, working together to find the truth. Clavier is one of the few prosecutors in the series who actually shares information about the case and works to find out the truth, whether he wins or loses the case. He was also a musical rock star, but due to a certain case in the game, his band was disbanded. But he doesn't feel bummed about it since his real passion is in the law, while his music is more of a hobby. I actually welcome the idea of a prosecutor who helps the defense attorney throughout the game, rather than to have one who doesn't help, who whips, or tases his rivals. And speaking of Apollo Justice, better get your ears plugged for a few seconds, because Apollo is testing his cords of steel. Apollo Justice is a defense attorney who became Phoenix's apprentice at his agency. He's sometimes serious and has a desire to build self-confidence, yelling that he's fine to make himself feel better and to psych himself up. But nowadays, Apollo's much calmer, self-assured, and even matured greatly with experience. He's also determined about his job and cares deeply about his own friends. There were even times where Apollo has felt harsh and full of doubt, but despite having that, he wants to believe in his friends and wants to find the truth on his own right. Apollo also possesses a bracelet inherited from his mother to help him focus on nervous habits from other people, as it gets tighter around his wrist, telling him that that person is hiding something. Okay, before I say anything more, here are some huge spoilers from Spirit of Justice, so if you don't want to get spoiled, skip to the time frame shown next to me. For those who stay, here it is. After the last case in Spirit of Justice, Apollo has shown Phoenix how he has grown into becoming a great defense attorney. He now decided to temporarily stay in Khura'in to start his own firm, the Justice Law Offices, to help his brother Naida rebuild the country's legal system. Apollo has shown great character development, and I'm glad that he has become one of the best defense attorneys in the series. Let's hope we get to see him again in the near future in the next Ace Attorney game. It's such a shame that someone as beautiful and as determined as Mia Fey would die so young. However, that doesn't stop me from adding her onto the list. Mia Fey was Phoenix's boss and mentor, Maya's older sister, and an amazing defense attorney with an undying belief in her clients. She also created her own law firm, Fey & Company Law Offices, who later becomes Wright & Company Law Offices. Mia was born in a family of spirit mediums known as the Fey Clan. She grew up witnessing the rivalry between her mother and aunt and having a close sibling relationship with Maya. Then came the DL6 incident. During the case in which the police couldn't get any clues, Mia's mother, Misty, was called to channel Gregory Edgeworth, the victim, who has accused Yanni Yogi of being his killer. However, Yogi was declared innocent in court, and because of that, it disgraced the Khura'in tradition, and Misty was deemed a fraud, which caused her to disappear. Mia left the village, forsaking her position as heir to lead the Fey clan in order to become a lawyer to find out what truly happened to her mother. So she left Maya under Morgan's care along with Pearl. From then on, under the care of Marvin Grossberg and his best lawyer, Diego Armando, she learned to become an amazing defense attorney. While her first case ended in a tragedy where her client poisoned himself and it scarred her for life, it was her second trial that she showed her true determination, as her client was none other than Phoenix Wright, and she has succeeded in defending him. Throughout her career, Mia has been uncovering more and more details about what happened to her mother and the DL6 incident, while at the same time taught Phoenix how to become a good lawyer. But, unfortunately, Mia has met her end by the hands of some red-white bastard from Blue Corp. Despite that, however, Mia never left those she cared about alone. Mia has come forth being channeled by both Maya and Pearl to help Phoenix in his most desperate times, despite her getting close to some wardrobe malfunction. Mia Fey has always been an amazing lawyer. I hope one day Maya would channel her again in the future games. I really miss her. We'd never expect any of this to happen in Dual Destinies. We get to play as 3 lawyers, have a DLC case involved, the cases were great, the characters memorable, and of course, we have the amazing Twisted Samurai who—
Silence!
Whoa! Simon Blackwell, everybody. Has anybody expected an actual convict to actually prosecute a case? Well, Simon Blackwell is that kind of guy. Simon Blackwell is a prosecutor who, despite being a convict serving a murder sentence, was called to prosecute the cases in Dual Destinies. His prosecuting methods are among the best things ever done by a prosecutor. He uses psychological manipulation in court to intimidate others and bend to his will. He also has a pet hawk, Taka, who brings him evidence as well as making him go after the people he doesn't like, even landing on the judge's head. So how did he get convicted of murder? Let's find out. Again, spoilers. For those who don't want to see it, skip to this time. Simon Blackwell not only learned to be a prosecutor, but he also learned the ways of analytical psychology from Metis Sykes, who worked in the Cosmos Space Center along with his sister Aura. He also met Athena there, being Metis' daughter. During his early careers as a prosecutor, he was pursuing the international spy, the Phantom. The reason for his conviction is pretty dark, so if no one likes to hear stuff like this, you have been warned. During one of his visits to the Space Center, he has stumbled upon a very horrific scene. Metis' body lying on the robot repair bench with a stab wound on her chest, and Athena trying to repair her. Fearing for the worst for Athena, since he didn't want to believe she'd kill her own mother, Simon has decided to cover for her, protecting the psychological profile that Metis generated, hiding evidence, and dismantling a robot witness. The police later arrested Simon, and he was declared guilty, since Simon pleaded so to protect Athena and was sentenced to death. 7 years later, he was called to prosecute, facing both Phoenix and Apollo, testing Athena in court, and ultimately finding the real truth in the final case of the game, declaring Simon innocent, clearing him of all the charges. Simon is an amazing and mysterious prosecutor, and by God, one of the most awesome ones. Just don't piss him off, or else you get slashed by a sword or scratched by Taka's talons. As much as I like Blackwell for his awesome look and his badass personality, he just can't compare to the one and only Miles Edgeworth. You know him, I know him, and everyone knows him, but for those who don't, let me get clear then. Miles Edgeworth is a well-renowned prosecutor and Phoenix's childhood friend as well as a longtime rival in court. Usually calm and level-headed, Edgeworth has gone through many hardships to the point of becoming a very determined prosecutor in court. But before he became a prosecutor, he actually wanted to be a defense attorney. Miles was inspired by his father, Gregory Edgeworth, a veteran defense attorney, and he wanted to follow in his footsteps. Unfortunately, because of the events of the DL6 incident, Miles has suffered a traumatic experience, gaining his fear of earthquakes and losing his father. Since then, Manfred von Karma, along with his daughter Franziska, took him in and raised him. Edgeworth then learned from his foster father in the ways of prosecution, and he became a prosecutor by the age of 20. Since then, he has never lost a case for 4 years due to his hunger for victory that he learned from Manfred. However, he has suffered losses against his best friend Phoenix, and since then, Edgeworth has questioned about the ways of being a prosecutor. It was then that Edgeworth has learned what a prosecutor should do: to seek the truth above all else and use the power of the law to save people. From then on, Edgeworth has become an international prosecutor, and he has prosecuted in 500 countries. Eventually, Edgeworth, to save the lives of innocent people and help out his friends, has become the new chief prosecutor. It was in that position that Edgeworth helped Phoenix and Simon Blackwell in the events of Dual Destinies to fix the dark age of the law. Miles Edgeworth has become one of the best prosecutors with the objective to find the truth, looking through the evidence and pointing out flaws from the defense and the witnesses' testimonies. He may lose in some of the cases, but he wouldn't mind as long as the truth is found, and he learned that the hard way thanks to his best friend, Phoenix Wright. I know there's more stuff about Edgeworth than I currently know since I haven't played or seen playthroughs of the Ace Attorney investigation games, but I know well enough that Edgeworth is one man you would trust to find the truth. When Ace Attorney Dual Destinies was announced, I was hyped knowing that Phoenix Wright is coming back to court. In that trailer, a new character was introduced, that being Athena Sykes. Judging by her design, I was hoping that she would become a great character with a likable personality and a great partner. And as soon as it came out, it was exactly what I hoped and more. You know it, I love how Athena made an impression on me and probably many Ace Attorney fans out there. Athena Sykes is a defense attorney who has become a great asset to the Write Anything agency and became a great partner to Phoenix and Apollo. She's also a specialist in analytical psychology, as she has the special ability to pick up emotions from the witnesses' voices. How so, you may ask? I'll explain later after a little background.
Spoilers. Skip if you don't want to see it.
Athena lived in the Cosmos Space Center along with her mother Metis. However, due to her ability, she was very withdrawn, as she was afraid she'd get a sensory overload within a large group of people. Kinda like Clark Kent when he was young. Unfortunately, her life has gone through a series of horrific moments. Metis was murdered by the Phantom, and Athena tried to save her by fixing her, like how her mother fixes the robots since she didn't understand the difference between humans and robots. As I explained before, Simon Blackwell witnessed this and tried to protect Athena's innocence. But Athena knew that Blackwell didn't do it and tried to speak out in his defense, saying that his heart is screaming that he didn't kill her. But her pleas fell on deaf ears and Blackwell was declared guilty. Athena was traumatized by this ordeal and it caused her to repress the memories of that day. But it didn't stop her from wanting to save Blackwell. So she traveled to Europe in order to study law and psychology, taking with her the two gifts her mother granted her. A piece of the moon rock that was made into an earring, and Widget, a personal AI companion and a computer who she wears around her neck. After 7 years, Athena met Phoenix and she was invited to join the Write Anything agency, which she accepted gladly and has gained a lot of confidence so she can save Blackwell. As for her abilities in court, as I stated before, she has the ability to pick up emotions for the witnesses. She uses a mood matrix, a program installed into Widget, to examine the subtle emotional cues while the witness gave their testimonies. For example, the witness stated that a Fred was in the room, in which he's supposed to be scared, but she detected a slight bit of happiness in that statement, allowing her to find out why and detecting what truly happened. Lastly, I love her personality. She has strong emotions and a powerful drive to win, though sometimes she can be reckless. And occasionally, Widget picks up her emotions and says what she's thinking, much to her dismay. But she never gives up until she's saved those she cares about. And when she's put into a corner, her friends are there for her, even Simon Blackwell. Overall, I love Athena. Let's hope one day she could get more cases in the future and help out a lot more people. Heck, why not throw in a game of her own? Athena Sykes Ace Attorney. Make it happen, Capcom! Okay, time to bring this up again. The top two characters got me into a lot of thinking, guys, because both of them have left a huge impression on us. One as a prosecutor, and another as a lawyer. After so much deliberation, I've made my decision. So, to present my number 2 spot, can someone pass him a mug of coffee, please? I can already feel the many people watching this and wondering, why isn't Godot number 1 on my list? That's pretty simple. I just like my number 1 choice more. But that doesn't mean I don't love Godot, or Godot, or how do you pronounce it? I'll just say Godot. He's one of the best characters introduced in the series. Heck, if I had a countdown for prosecutors, Godot is my definitive number 1. But let's not beat around the bush and talk about this coffee-loving man. Godot is a mysterious prosecutor who has been on Phoenix Wright's cases throughout the course of trials and tribulations. This guy is very metaphorical, as he loves to impersonate and use metaphors in court, especially if it involves coffee. Speaking of which, as I said before, he loves coffee, as he's known to drink 17 cups of coffee in court, as well as having over 107 different personal coffee blends. Ever since he was introduced, he had a huge grudge on Phoenix and was never explained why. That's where I come in to explain. Spoilers. A few years earlier, Godot was originally Diego Armando, a senior defense attorney who worked with Marvin Grossberg at his law offices. He was also Mia Fey's aide when she took on her first case. When Mia's first case ended in a disaster, an angered Diego Armando broke his coffee mug with his bare hands and stated to her, "The only time a lawyer can cry is when it's all over." Diego and Mia were very close as the two started dating after the trial. One day, Diego was questioning Dahlia Hawthorne to find out about her recent actions, but like the devil that she is, Dahlia slipped the poison in his coffee, and as a result, he has been stuck in a coma for over 5 years. Although he was lucky he survived, the poison damaged his central nervous system, which caused severe damage to his eyes, as well as his hair turning white. After he woke up, he found out about Dahlia's imprisonment, as well as Mia's death at the hands of Red White. Blaming Phoenix for her death, and with a new resolve to protect Maya, he became a prosecutor to test Phoenix's worthiness to succeed Mia and spy on Morgan Fay. Since then, he took on a new name, Godot, and wears a special visor which allows him to see, despite not having the ability to see red over white. After losing his cases against Phoenix, it all came down to the final trial. When Dahlia, who was channeled by Elise Donham, attacked Maya, Godot slashed her back, but not after she attacked him one last time, leaving a wound on his face. During the trial, right after Dahlia left Maya's body, it leads to Phoenix's final test. Who killed Elise Donham, aka Misty Fey? Phoenix only suspects one person, and that is Godot. However, Maya, who was on the witness stand, didn't make it easy for him, as it was Godot who saved Maya from being killed by Dahlia. Phoenix, however, didn't stop, as the one thing he seeks out the most is to find the truth. Godot has challenged Phoenix throughout the trial, testing him if he was worthy of being Mia's protege. And when the final obstacle was laid out, Phoenix, with Mia's spirit supporting him, has shown the court and Godot what a true lawyer really is. Godot was defeated, but he wasn't angry. He was actually glad. He has admitted his mistake, and he accepted the fact that he was angry at Phoenix because he needed someone to blame for Mia's death, motivated by revenge. And then, his eye was bleeding. But he stated that there were tears. That's when he decided to give Maya the same advice he gave to her big sister. The only time a lawyer can cry is when it's all over. With that, he shared his last cup of coffee with Phoenix, which was the best coffee blend he ever made. And while Phoenix was upset that he couldn't save Godot, he actually did, in a way that had nothing to do with living or dying. Godot has left a huge impact on Ace Attorney fans, including myself, and I hope that he may return one day to challenge Phoenix once again, or maybe even help him. So now you're all thinking, who do I like better than Godot? Well, you know what that means. It's recap time! Number 14, Gaspin Payne. Number 13, Winston Payne. Number 12, Garan Sigatar Karain. Number 11, Manfred von Karma. Number 10, Nayuda Sadmandi. Number 9, Franziska von Karma. Number 8, Clavier Gavin. Number 7, Apollo Justice. Number 6, Mia Fey. Number 5, Simon Blackwell. Number 4, Miles Edgeworth. Number 3, Athena Sykes. And number 2, Godot. Like I said before, choosing between Godot and the number 1 choice was very difficult for me. But when it all came down to it, number 1 has impacted me more than any of my previous entries on the list alone. So, the number 1 Ace Attorney on my list? Like I even have to say his name. Objection! I know. Putting the main character as number 1 has always been one of the easiest things to do, and some main characters aren't as popular as some of the side characters. But I'll be honest here guys, I had a hard time deciding who my number 1 is on this countdown, and Phoenix has impacted me more than anybody else in the series. Phoenix Wright is a veteran defense attorney who leads the Wright Anything Agency and was known for his ability to turn hopeless cases around. With his trademark spiky hair and his amazing blue suit and pink tie, Phoenix is always ready to take on any case when an innocent defendant is in trouble. However, he didn't become a lawyer on a whim. He got inspiration from many people. When he was in the 4th grade, he was accused of stealing Edgeworth's lunch money, and he didn't have an alibi, but he was defended by Edgeworth himself, as he asserted that he couldn't be proven guilty without evidence. They, along with Larry Butts, became inseparable friends, and Phoenix was inspired by the class trial and Edgeworth that he aspires to be a defense attorney. He then studied art and law at Ivy University, and after seeing an article about Edgeworth becoming a ruthless prosecutor, he decided that if he could become a lawyer, he would be able to meet Edgeworth in court and save him from his problems. After his trial of the murder of Doc Swallow, who was later found out that Dahlia was responsible for it, Phoenix was inspired by his lawyer Mia Fey to pursue law full-time. As soon as he graduated, he received his attorney's badge and Mia took him under his wing. He had quite a start as a lawyer. He won his first case defending his best friend Larry Butts, His mentor Mia was murdered, he defended her little sister Maya, bested Edgeworth twice in a row, he found the truth of the DL6 incident, and bested Manfred von Karma himself. Since then, Phoenix Wright has gone through so many hardships as a lawyer. He went through silly moments, such as defending a circus star, getting coffee mugs to the face, and even cross-examining a parrot. A freaking parrot! Serious moments such as being blackmailed to defend a real criminal, being put in a corner with so little evidence, and even defending himself. And dangerous moments such as getting tased by Manfred von Karma and attempting to cross a burning bridge and falling into the Eagle River, in which he luckily survived. But he was never prepared for the ultimate penalty, losing his attorney's badge. Because of a certain someone, he unknowingly used forged evidence in the trial of Zach Romarie, and because of that, he had to surrender his badge and leave his position as a lawyer. But he wasn't out for the count. He still investigated the incidents involving the Gromaries, the Mishams, and even Christoph Gavin, and with the help of Apollo Justice and his adopted daughter Trucy, he found the truth of the case, instated the jury system in the trial of Vera Misham, and Christoph was arrested. Thanks to that, Phoenix managed to retake the bar exam, reclaim the right to wear his attorney's badge, and return to court to do what he does best. And age didn't slow him down one bit, as he succeeded to stop the dark age of the law and was the first lawyer in years to win a court in a kingdom of Khura'in. Phoenix Wright has done things that no other lawyer in court has managed to do in years, defending his clients in hopeless cases and finding the truth. Although his bluffs may not be truthful, they lead to more leads on his cases as he picks up the pieces and solves the puzzles in court, and he made sure to teach that to his apprentices Athena and Apollo. I'll be honest, I really wanted to pick someone else as my number one, and I know picking the main character isn't usually the wise choice. But Phoenix Wright has shown a lot of determination, courage, and dedication to what he does that he has earned my respect as my number one ace attorney. This is the Keyblade Soarlord, and thank you for watching. Hey guys, once again, I must apologize for this huge delay. I'll say now that while I love Ace Attorney so much, my idea for Ace Attorney month wasn't very smart, and it fell apart quite quickly. So I'll hold off on Ace Attorney for now and start focusing on other topics in the future. Next time I do a month dedicated on something, I'll need to make sure that every script for it is finished before I make an announcement. I apologize to everyone who's expected to see more Ace Attorney, but I'll make sure to bring it back in the future. So here's the introduction for my next countdown.